Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Dr. Rashawn Broadnex here again with another evening of our late night conversation. We want to welcome everyone to our Shear Chat, it's called Shear Chat After Dark. And this is the late show because, of course, I'm late. I was supposed to be on at 10 o'clock tonight, but I got wrapped up in the salon. Those of us who work in salons, we know how that works. You know, you get wrapped up, things don't go always according to plan. And so here I am, an hour behind schedule, but nonetheless, still here. So tonight, if you saw the description of tonight's show, I am going to be talking about two cases where chemical services pretty much took a left turn in the salon. Now, again, these are not specifically my stories. These are stories that have been shared with me by other stylists, salon owners, clients, and the like. So definitely the show is really made to be informative, kind of to give you a way how to navigate through certain instances and situations, and just to kind of hear about some of the crazy things that happen in salons, as well as the crazy things that we may be talking about in salons. So without further ado, I would like to welcome you all to yet another evening of the show. All right, so let's get started. So the first story I am going to talk to you about, first of all, I'm just going to tell y'all I have my little nice happy juice here. And yes, so I hope you guys have something nice to drink as well, because these stories are pretty good. Take a sip and let's get started. So the first story we're going to talk about is something that I heard about kind of fairly recently. And it was where, let's just say the gist of the story started out because of a client's complaint. And the complaint outlined how she went to her appointment with her stylist as scheduled. Unfortunately, when she went to the salon, the stylist was not there. But guess who was there? Can anybody guess who was there? It was the assistant who was there, right? Because many of us, who are stylists, we get in this mode. And I know when I first started, I tried to be super professional. And I said to myself, I will always be there when my assistant is there. My assistant will never be there alone. And then I got into the mode of, at my job, I wasn't able to get to the salon according to my regularly scheduled schedule, what have you. Basically, I was used to working, starting my book at 5:30 for years. And the job that I had did not let me off until 6. And so I did not want to push my clients to 6 or 6:30. So I had an assistant who was able to help me. Now, my saving grace was my assistant was a licensed hairstylist, or my current assistant, actually, she is a licensed hairstylist. So that worked out so much better for me because I could trust her with certain tasks without really having to worry. Now, one of the things that I would always suggest or say to a stylist is never, 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 ever, 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 never allow your assistant to perform the chemical services on your client. That is like my cardinal rule. Even though my assistant is a licensed stylist, the client pays to come to me for certain services. So my assistant really helps me out basically with the wet work, with the shampooing, the conditioning, the treatments, things like that, things that she can get started without any problem, things that are kind of repetitive based on the client. But when it comes to color and it comes to relaxing or, perming hair, and, we know that relaxing and perming is two different things. But when it comes to all of those things, I would never, ever, ever allow my assistant to do that, because my client is coming to me for those services. The client is putting their trust in you to perform these certain services, not your assistant. They're paying you for the service, not your assistant, right? So in this particular instance, the client gets to the salon. And when she gets to the salon, the stylist is not there, but the assistant is there. And so the assistant, she says, oh, let's call her Jane. Jane, what are you getting today? Oh, Jane, I'm going to get some finger waves. And she says, oh, wow, well, Jane, I think you need a relaxer in order to get finger waves. So Jane is like, I don't know, but I really want my finger waves. So, okay, go ahead. So now, mind you, let's step in Jane's shoes for a second. Jane has been to the salon many times with this stylist, right? So she knows that she knows the stylist work, and she's been with the assistant for a while. So she has a certain level of trust in the assistant. But what I would say to the client, the same that I just said for the stylist, please make sure that the person you are paying for certain services is the one that's performing the service, right? So in this particular instance, Jane allows the assistant to put in her relaxer. Now, let's just say this. I want all of the clients who may be on, I want you to understand that when you get a relaxer and your scalp starts to irritate, that is not a good thing, right? Sometimes we say, oh, well, it'll be all right. That just means the relaxer is really working. Baby, no, it's not. That means that the relaxer has gotten down to your scalp and it is starting to irritate that's my little doggy. It's starting to irritate the epidermis of the scalp. So now the other thing is you cannot, you can't do a relaxer service or let's just say a relaxer service without properly protecting the scalp. So even though a client may say to you, well, you know what? I don't really use, you don't have to use a protective cream on my scalp because my scalp doesn't really burn. You never, ever, ever, of course, want to take that chance, right? Because my motto is anytime something can happen, it will happen. And that one time that you opt not to protect the client's scalp will be the one time that the scalp will burn. And it will not just irritate, it will not just burn, it will severely burn. It will cause that client excruciating pain. That's just how I feel. Anytime something can happen, you leave the door for it to happen, it will happen. So again, back to the story. So the client, she's getting the relaxer, the assistant is putting the relaxer in, and she's doing what she's supposed to do, doing what she's been taught to do. However, apparently she did not properly protect the full scalp, and there was a section where the scalp was not covered, right? So the relaxer, which is made up of sodium hydroxide, starts to eat away at the epidermis of the scalp. So it's eating at the top layer. That's where you start to feel that irritation, is when the chemical starts to irritate that top layer. That's what's happening when you feel that. So the client says, okay, it's really starting to irritate my scalp. The assistant says, okay, give me 1 second. I'm almost done. That's the other thing. When a client says that, hey, it's irritating my scalp, you have to take action on that quickly. You do not want to leave the door open for that scalp to continue to be irritated. So then moving on, she rinses out the relaxer. She properly shampoos it, with her neutralizing shampoo and all that good stuff. And she towel blots the hair, and she's prepared for the stylist to come in and do the style. Stylist comes in and does the finger waves really quickly, sits her under the dryer, no problem, no harm, no foul. She goes on. Now the client, again, this is where I would say for clients, when that has happened, you have to say something. So when that took place, that particular client should have said to the stylist, hey, when your assistant was doing my relaxer, my scalp started to irritate. I just need to let you know that, right? So that kind of lets everybody know what's going on. It keeps everybody on the same page. The client, unfortunately, did not say that to the stylist. She allowed the stylist to go ahead and do the finger wave. She took whatever irritation that may have happened without saying anything, and she went under the dryer and she got her service. Well, in a week's time, when that I'll say in a couple of days it probably started. When you get a burn on your hand, the skin, when it starts to dry out, it starts to get kind of tight. That's when you really start to feel some pain. And so in about a week's time, she said, she called the salon and said, hey, my scalp is burned. And so the stylist says, well, no, your scalp can't be burned because, we were able to do the finger wave. She said, yeah, well, the scalp burn happened when your assistant was doing my relaxer. And, I didn't feel like it hurt as much at the time. I just thought it was the irritation. And so I didn't say anything. And so the stylist says, well, that's number one. When that happened, you were supposed to tell me. Now, to my stylist, I am talking to my stylist now. When a client tells you that something is wrong, right? When they tell you that their scalp has been irritated, they've been burned, or what have you, that is where our customer service hat should go on. We should understand and apologize to the client. Hey, I'm so sorry that happened. Whether you did it or the assistant did it, what have you, that's where you have to now do right by your client. Because remember, your client is the one who is paying you for the service. They're not paying your assistant for the service. They're paying you. So she's saying that she has been burned. The improper thing is to say, oh, you were supposed to tell me. No, yes, I was supposed to tell you, but I did not. But from a customer service standpoint, I'm sorry that happened to you. Let's see what we can do to fix it. This is similar to what we talked about last night with the case of the hair color, right? So the stylist tells the young lady, hey, you were supposed to tell me. Well, the only thing that I can do, you can come back and let me take a look at it. Well, when I tell you, and I'm going to say get in real close because I'm going to talk kind of quietly. When that young lady came in, and I'll say when I saw the picture of what it looked like, I was mortified. I was mortified because there was a part of the young lady's scalp that was greater than the size of a silver dollar. Okay. And so we know how big a quarter is. We know how big a silver dollar is. The area that was burned was larger than a silver dollar. And so that means that there was no hair there. And it had fully, the relaxer had fully gone down to the scalp and started to eat away at that top layer, because clearly, most of us, we look at our scalp, like I'm looking at mine, I can see that my scalp is kind of brown, similar to my skin color, right? And now I'm talking to my clients out there. Your scalp is very similar to your skin color, your skin tone. It's usually just a few shades lighter. In this section, that lady's scalp was white. It had gone down to the white meat. Let's see, Kathleen, you said what to do when a stylist don't want to do your hair if you decline getting relaxers due to healthy hair. Well, listen, if you decline to get a relaxer when you go to your stylist, some stylists only want to deal with relaxers, right? Over the years, there are stylists who they never transitioned into the natural styling. And I would say, for some people, it's very difficult depending on the style. Some people find it difficult to do finger waves on hair that is natural versus hair that is relaxed. Relaxed hair is like a breeze. But when it comes to natural hair or hair that has new growth, that can be a little more of a challenge. And so sometimes we opt to do what is easier for us, and we want the client to get the relaxer. If you say, hey, I don't want to get it, I would say either you find a stylist that would work with you with your hair care journey, that's going to understand that you're trying to keep your hair healthy, that's not going to give you the relaxer too often, or you, I would say, opt to get the relaxer. But if you're on a healthy hair journey and you know that you had your relaxer, say just 4 weeks ago, and you don't want to get the relaxer, and it's only been 4 weeks, I would say tell the client either you choose a different style or you choose a different stylist. Let's see, you said, I want Marcel curlers instead of flat irons because my hair is thick. Okay, that's fine. But you know what, Kathleen, keep that thought. I'm going to come back to that because I don't want to veer too far away from the topic tonight this early in the segment. So back to the young lady. So she comes in, she shows the picture. And when I see the picture, I am mortified because there's this big spot where the young lady is missing hair, right? And so she's telling the stylist, basically, I hold you at fault because you came, I came to you for the service and I didn't get what I was paying for. So the stylist says, well, I did the service, I completed the service, unfortunately, I did not do the relaxer. Again, you have to take ownership because when your assistant, when you work with an assistant, an assistant is an extension of you, right? So my assistant, this is how I train my assistants or the people that have worked with me. When they first start with me, they have to watch what I do because I need you to commit to memory what I do, because when I step away from the chair and you take my place, you are supposed to be able to do the exact same thing. The client should feel no difference in the level of service when your assistant steps in. So if your assistant is shampooing, you need to show them exactly how you shampoo, even down to where you may need to have them put their hand on the client's head and you put your hands over theirs and manipulate the scalp the same way so that your assistant gets the idea, okay, this is what my stylist does. This is what I have to do to the clients, right? So when she said to the client, when the stylist said to the client, hey, well, it was my assistant, she tried to pass the buck. She didn't understand that the assistant is an extension of her. Because of that type of interaction, she took no ownership of it. It's sad to say that, unfortunately, they are on their way to a lawsuit, right? And so in the lawsuit, as I'm looking at the information, I looked at what the client had presented, and she laid out, impeccably what took place. And what she maintained was that she came to the salon to pay the stylist to do the work, not the assistant. Now, what the ownership she has to take in that part is she did allow the assistant to do the service. So that is where I would say, if I had to mediate, I would say to the client, that's the ownership you have to take part, or the part that you have to take ownership of is you did allow it. Because again, if you go to the salon and you see, that your stylist usually does the relaxer and the assistant says, hey, I can do the relaxer, I may say, you know what, I would rather wait for the stylist, at least so that the stylist is there when it's taking place. But again, if it's me, I don't allow those who work with me to process my chemical services, whether they are licensed or not, because again, you are coming to see me, not the assistant, right? So in this particular case, I think the stylist and the client, have to really work together before this becomes such a big deal, or more of a big deal than it already has. You may be asking, what can they do? If it were me, the stylist, I would say, to the client, first of all, I'm going to apologize to the client that this happened. You have to take full ownership because it did happen under your purview because the assistant works for you. So you take ownership of it, but then you also have to figure out, how can I assist this client in restoring what has been lost? So number one, you're going to make sure you treat the scalp. You may have to do some holistic things to soothe the scalp. Like I always recommend aloe vera. Because aloe vera will calm any inflammation, it will kind of soothe it, and it also heal the area. You can also use a little bit of Neosporin on a burn, to kind of heal the area. The thing is, you want to make sure that that scalp remains healthy in that area because you want it to reproduce the hair. You do not want it to become or to go into a I guess we'll say like a realm of being damaged to the point where it will no longer produce hair, because that will be even more detrimental. That is where, if that were to happen, that's where the client really would have a leg to stand on, because that becomes more, even more so like a suit of malpractice. And that can cause a major, major issue for a stylist, especially if you are a stylist who does not have insurance. So I would say, stylist, if you can hear me, please make sure that you have your insurance. Stylist, if you can hear me, please make sure you have insurance. Stylist, if you can hear me one more time, please make sure you have insurance. Insurance is one of the number one things that, as a practitioner, when we touch the public, we have to make sure that we have, because anything can happen, and you always want to make sure that you're covered. Not even just so much that, oh, if it happens, I'm covered and they'll pay for it, but that you're covered and it doesn't dramatically impact your business. Because if that client sues you and really like get something out of you, that can really cripple your business, right? And then, like we talked last night, bad news travels just as fast as good news. So if that stylist or if that client says, yeah, I had to sue so-and-so, I had to sue Miss what's her name because she allowed her assistant, that news will travel so fast. I'm here to tell you. So again, the number one thing that stylists have to make sure that they have, especially in this day and age, is an insurance policy to protect themselves. Right. So in that particular situation, that's something that's actually still in the process. It's still going on. And, I'll be happy to tell you guys how it plays out. But also, if you're a stylist and you encounter these issues with a client, I would definitely say, please take ownership of what has happened. And then also make sure that you do whatever you can to restore or assist the client's scalp in being repaired so that it heals properly, because again, you want that hair to be able to come back. Now, so the second, I have to take a little sip of my little juice here. Let's see. Please, yes, please do. We want to know. I definitely will. So now let me go back, because Kathleen had another question. Or she had a statement. She said, I want Marcel curlers instead of flat irons because my hair is thick. Well, Kathleen, this is what I would say. Again, you have to find a stylist that can give you what you want, right? As stylists, we often do what's easier for us. So it may be easy for us to take that flat iron, of course, because I don't have to worry about monitoring the heat of a Marcel iron. When I use my flat iron typically stays constant at a certain temperature. I can curl your hair straight across, and keep it moving. It will happen so much quicker than it would with a Marcel iron. But one of the things that I found, which is kind of interesting, this day and age, there are a lot of stylists who are not adept with using the Marcel curlers, right? Because they have kind of left that behind. Everything has become, even just as the rest of the world, the microwave syndrome, we do that with hair as well. We try to use the quickest thing that we can to get to the inline. So the flat iron is typically the quickest tool that we can use. You have to find a stylist that would be willing to give you what you want. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a client myself who had short hair, and at the time I had a full set of Marcel irons, but I won't say I had no idea. I was not proficient in using them in curling short hair. I was very afraid because the hair was short. I was afraid to burn the client. I was afraid to burn myself. I was afraid to burn the client's hair because of the heat. It was just a situation that I was not very comfortable with. But thank goodness I had a client, and some people will get these clients. I had a client who told me, this is what I want, and I'm not afraid to allow you to work on my hair, right? So that helped build my confidence, because she wasn't afraid, or at least she said she wasn't afraid. She wasn't afraid. And so I felt a little more secure in doing it. I knew all the things that I had to do. I knew I had to monitor how long the curler was in the stove. I knew that I had to test it as I brought it out. I knew once you start working with the Marcel, you kind of get in a rhythm. So you know that you can stick it in. You only have but a few seconds before it gets too hot. You take it out and you start curling, you stick it back in. It becomes a rhythm that you have to have when you use Marcel irons. It is a skill. It is definitely a technique. It is a skill. Not everybody has it. And definitely, I would say if that is something that you're looking for, you have to find a stylist that is able to give you what you want, and in the way that you want. I've had clients, I'll tell you, like my senior clients, they don't play. When it comes to flat iron, they're like, you are not going to put that thing in my head, because the flat iron curls do not last as long as the Marcel curls do for what they're trying to do, especially when they get those crokinole curls. It does not last as long. So they are adamant. I'll say my clients, they are adamant. They're like, pull that stove down, get them curlers warmed up. Let's go. Where's my curl wax? And we get to moving. Right. So I have a couple of clients that I have to do that with, and I have to respect them if I want to maintain them as clients, because if I can't give them what they want, then of course they always have the option to leave. And the name of the game is to build the clientele, not to tear it down, right? So we do what we can within our power to be able to provide the best service to our client. I want to say hello to everyone. So hello to Lisa. Thank you for coming on. Definitely Kathleen, thank you for coming on and being interactive. Graceville Hands, I see you there. Chanel, thank you for coming on. Ty is one of my clients. Thank you so much for the compliment, Ty. I see Carly, Tony, Derek, thank you so much for coming on. Marcel, you're there. I'm sorry, Cute Chulo, and Alvion. I see Cottrell, Jabby. Who else is up here? Total Package. I see Miss Porter. Thank you guys for popping on this evening and finding out robbery to spend a little time with me. Yes, you said it, Graceville Hands. Figure 8, that's all the way. That's what they want. They want that nice tight curl. They want it to sit on base. They want, that curl to be able to last. And when it doesn't, they have a problem. I'll tell you, if I don't use enough curl wax on my clients, they will come back and they'll say, those curls didn't last but a week. And they want those curls to last 2 weeks. My clients are pretty much on a 2-week schedule, so they understand, or they expect that the curl is going to last them at least a week and a half. By that Wednesday of the second week, they're not too pressed. They're like, it is what it is. I'm going back to see him on Saturday. So they come and we do it all over again. But now let's talk about the second case. So the second case is also about the chemical relaxer service. If you read the description tonight, the description said what happens when the chemical service took a left turn. Now, this particular one, I'll say, was kind of, it's an interesting case because it's twofold. It really is. The client comes into the salon based off of the reputation, the name of the salon, right? And she comes to a stylist. This is her first visit. And she says, hey, I want a relaxer. So now, number one, this is what I would suggest to clients. When you go to a stylist for the first time, the first service, you may not want it to be a chemical service, because you might want to sit and get a feel of how they operate, right? You want to get a feel of the atmosphere, the ambiance, the environment. How does the stylist, how do they do hair? Are they conscious of how they're doing or what they're doing, or are they just haphazardly doing things? We have some stylists that do not pay as close attention as we would want them to. So I would suggest that when you go to a stylist for the first time, that it may not be a chemical service or something that is very intricate, because you need to learn the stylist first. So she, as a walk-in, she came in and she said, what should we call the stylist this time? Let's call the stylist Ashley, right? So we'll keep the same name for the client. Her name is Joan. So Joan comes in and she says, hey, Ashley, I want a relaxer. I'm getting ready to go on a trip. in a couple of days, and um, I want my hair freshly done. And now, and this ironically happened to be another instance of the finger wave. So she says, Ashley, go ahead and give me a relaxer. I'm trying to get these finger waves. I'm going on a trip. I'm going on a cruise. So Ashley says, okay, well, no problem. Ashley, now I'm telling you, this is the interesting thing. Ashley had been doing hair for 30 years plus. And I want you to remember that, because that is very important to the story and how it plays out. 30 years plus. In 30 years, you should have, or I'm not going to say you should have, because I don't want to be accusatory or blaming. What I'm going to say is, over the course of 30 years, I'll say over the course of the 17 years that I've been doing here, I've learned a lot of things. And one of the main things that I learned is to keep proper records. When you come to me for the first time, especially for a chemical service, I need to have a record on you. I need to do a client consultation card, is what we call it. And that client consultation card has some questions. It's going to tell me the key things that I need to know about you prior to doing this particular service. So unfortunately, Ashley did not do the client consultation card on this particular client. She just went right in. She used the protective cream on the scalp. She did the relaxer. She went ahead and did the started doing the relaxer service. And in that process, let's just say her application was not as neat as it should have been. And the reason why I say that, or why that is important, because it plays out as to what happened later on. So the application was a little messy, and so she finishes that, she rinses her, she gives her neutralizing shampoo, does all of that, her treatment. She does the finger waves. The client looks absolutely beautiful when she walks out. And, the stylist actually took a picture, and she was like, because she was very proud of her work, she took a picture and she kept the picture of the client. Well, mind you, the client is going on a trip, right? So when the client goes on a trip in a couple of days, she calls while she's away, and she says, hey, my scalp is irritating. And so Ashley says, well, your scalp is irritating, what do you mean? So she says, well, I think when you gave me the relaxer, it burned my skin. And so she's like, I didn't see any burning or any area where a burn would have taken place when I was going through your hair or when I shampooed you. So I don't understand, what you're talking about. I can't imagine how that could happen. Excuse me. So then she says, well, okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you when I come back. So she comes back from her trip, and she comes into the salon. She brings these pictures. And now I'll tell you, when I saw the pictures here yet again, I was mortified, because from the picture, I could not, as a stylist, fathom how this could happen, right? So the client she takes a picture. She has a burn on the side of her face here. She has a burn like up here by her ear. She has some burning down on her lower neck. And all of this is illustrated in the photographs. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, gosh, how could this even happen? Because when you do a relaxer, like, you understand that the relaxer doesn't burn immediately, right? So if I take relaxer and I'm giving you a relaxer service and I get it on your forehead, it's not going to burn as immediately as it touches your forehead. It's going to take a few seconds before, well, not even a few seconds. It's going to take a minute before that relaxer starts to eat at the epidermis of the skin. So I'm like, how could this possibly happen? I just don't understand, what's going on. So the client shows these pictures. She says, well, You know, you said that you are a competent stylist. You said that you have been doing hair for a long time. You know, I'm greatly displeased. You have burned my skin. You know, I'm going to seek legal counsel. So she goes and seeks legal counsel, and legal counsel starts to phone the salon, right? They try to get in touch with the stylist. The stylist is afraid to answer the calls because she's like, I don't want to face this. Number two, I'll say this is the thing. When people reach out to you, it is in your best interest to answer them. You may not answer them the first time, but you want to answer them as quickly as you possibly can because you don't want to make the situation worse. By putting off or belaboring phone calls or communication, you make the situation worse. Last night, we talked about the stylist in the salon who performed the extension service, and she would not get on the phone with the client. The client kept calling. She would not answer her calls. The more the client called, the more irritated she got, right? So the same thing, when the attorney started reaching out to her, they started becoming irritated with the fact that the stylist would not answer the phone, that they could not get in contact with her. So of course, the next step they do is they send a letter to her. Now she reads the letter, she receives the letter, reads the letter, and is like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Well, long story short, when the client gave over the photographs to the lawyer, you know, they looked and they said immediately, oh, your skin is burnt. We have a malpractice case, right? So they were happy to jump on it because they're like, okay, we're about to get her some money and we're going to get paid, right? So they were all happy about it. They start pursuing the legal action. And so it caused the stylist to also now be an attorney for herself. She said, guess what? I don't have insurance and I really don't have money for an attorney. So as the attorney for the stylist started doing their work, her money started dwindling down because, you know, attorneys get paid by the hour. The work that they do is paid by the hour. That's why they call them billable hours. Every hour that they work on your case, they bill you. And sometimes the attorney fees are quite high. So you can run through some money quick, fast, and in a hurry. So long story short, the stylist then, she not only, as her lawyer started working on it, she sought the counsel of some other people. And I'll say, I was involved in that at that time. And as I looked at the pictures, I just could not believe, or I said, from based off of what I know and having done relaxers, there's no way in the world that a relaxer would burn somebody's scalp like that unless it had just been sitting there. So she would have had to have that relaxer sitting on the scalp, sitting back here behind here and on the neck in order for that to take place, right? Because the relaxer just does not work that fast that as soon as it's on the skin, it's going to burn. So I'm thinking to myself, something else has had to happen. So I started talking to a few other people who had been in the business, and they agreed relaxer is not going to do that. But as I talked to some people who are in various portions of the industry, one being an esthetician, the esthetician said to me, you know what? That looks like a reaction to the chemical. The client had some type of other service performed that is now causing an adverse reaction to maybe something that was on the skin. So it's possible that, you know, the relaxer did irritate the skin, but I would say it's very slim chance, right? But what has happened is the client then had some type of chemical service, which we later found out was a chemical peel. She was in the sun on her vacation and then had an adverse reaction to the chemical peel. Now, because she was on vacation, she opted, or I'll say, I don't know by what means, but she thought it was a good idea to try to blame it on the stylist, right? And so now She's suing the stylist. The stylist really doesn't have much of a leg to stand on because remember, she did not do a client consultation card. She had no records on this client. The only thing that they had was that the client has images of her coming into the salon. Excuse me, not coming. The client has record of her going into the salon. The stylist has a record based off of the picture that she took, which only shows the end result, right? So she ended up being sued, and at the advice of the attorney, they told her the best thing is to do a settlement because you don't have much of a leg to stand on. And if she takes this to court, even though she may have had a chemical peel and it may be due to a service, an additional service that she is outlining that when she had her relaxer with you, it was a sloppy application. You did have relaxer on her forehead, on her neck, and behind her ear. And so, with that being the case, even though she may have gotten a chemical peel, there was no way to surely say that the relaxer had not caused that she was not having a reaction to the relaxer, because of the sun and the chemical peel and all that stuff. So the moral of that story is, stylists, we definitely have to make sure that we have appropriate records. When we deal with clients, especially clients that we are not familiar with, that this may be their first time in the salon with us, you definitely want to make sure that you do a record on them. You want to take the appropriate information to find out what they've been doing to their hair prior to coming to you. What is their normal regimen? How do they style their hair? What products are they using? Are they allergic to anything? Are they on any medication? All these are things that can have an effect on how the style comes out, or as well as how chemicals react on the client, right? We all, I'm sure, as stylists, we have encountered clients who have come to the salon, and like, this is a famous one. Wait a minute, this is a good one. The client who says, I want to get my hair colored, right? So you say, oh, okay, you want to get your hair colored. When was your last color service? Oh, it was weeks ago, right? And that stylist has more recently done a color service on themselves, because as stylists, we should be able to smell chemicals. Chemicals have a certain odor. We can smell color. We can smell the developer, the peroxide, as it mixes with the color in the hair. If you just take a moment to try to smell that, you can identify, and you'll be able to tell when a client, or about how long a client has put a chemical in the hair before they've come to you. And so that is one of the things, when they say, oh, I did a color service 4 weeks ago, that's something you want to note on your chemical card, because that is something that can come back to bite you in the end. You want to put all the information that the client gives you on the chemical card. And what I like to do is, after I've documented everything, I have them sign next to it, right? That signature is an attestation. It is telling me that they agree with whatever I have put on the paper. It also is my backup if I have to go to court for any particular reason, dealing with the client. When I pull that record, I'm going to be able to say, guess what? She signed that she had the service, and she said that this was what happened. She had not had a chemical service. She has not done any color, and she signed next to it agreeing that that was the case, right? So that is your backup when you go to court. You always want to have documentation. One of the other things that I always suggest is, for a stylist, is that when you go, or when you're in a salon, right, and you have clients coming in, whether you take walk-ins or appointments, it does not matter. You always want to have a record of who comes in and out of your salon. You want to have a record of the date that they came in, and preferably the time that their appointment is. What I have learned to do over the years, and this is my key to the stylist, and I know that we have some clients that are on the line as well, but clients, this is something so that you'll know as well. Stylist, I always create a sign-in form for the desk of the salon, right? And on that sign-in form, there's an attestation. It basically says that I have received a client consultation prior to any service that I've received, and I authorize the stylist to do the service, right? So now somebody may say, well, that's kind of tricky, right? It is a trick, but it is something that is worthwhile doing. Because when your clients come in and you have them sign in, they are signing that attestation that you have given them a consultation and that they authorize you to do whatever service that you're about to do. It is no harm in you letting them know and that you point that out to them and say, hey, when you signed in, this is what you signed. You agreed to yada, yada, yada. And, that's fine. There's no problem in doing that. But one thing that you may have to do is take that record with you when you go to court. So if anything were to happen, you may have to take that and say, hey, well, the client signed in on January 1st, 2022. And in that signature, they agreed that I gave them a consultation and that they also agreed that I can do the service, right? So that is just a little something that I have kind of incorporated. I've gotten that from some of the other salons that I've worked in, and I've kind of carried that with me as I've gone through various salons throughout my career. So you want to do that, and then you also want to make sure that you have that client record. Those two things will save you a world of heartache and a world of trouble and keep you out of court, per se, but you may have to go to a mediation, but it will keep you out of a trial or out of any type of civil suit where a client is seeking kind of damages from you and things like that. The damages or the case may come up or the complaint may come up or the lawsuit may come up, but as long as you have your documentation, you are well able to represent yourself, not represent yourself as in the legal sense, but you're able to show them that you are a professional, that you have adequate records on each client that has come into the salon. You can prove that they were in the salon for whatever service. You can prove that they gave you authorization to do the service, that you provided a consultation. And with your client record, you prove that you have all the information and that everything that they have told you, they agreed was true. With all of that, that will be able to keep any type of damages to the bare minimum. With stuff like that, you are able to say to the client, listen, what I can do for you is I can provide you treatments to kind of restore anything that may have gone wrong. I can provide any type of service until the hair grows back. I can correct the color. It allows you to have that leg to stand on and say, hey, you're not going to get much, but what I'm willing to do is this, right? So that is one of the things that you want to do, is make sure that you always have adequate records on each client that comes into the salon. So the two things that I covered tonight that, I'll just recap really quickly is, as a stylist, we definitely want to make sure that we are doing the services that the clients are paying us for. If they are coming in for chemical services, if they're coming in for extension services, that is not something that you want to have your assistant do, because they are paying you for that, right? Even like I said, my assistant is a licensed stylist, but I still don't want her to do those things, because those things are the things that the client is paying me for. And also, if I allow her to do it, I have to accept any liability for anything that she does that may go wrong. And so I would rather it fall on me. If anybody's going to do wrong, I would rather it be me, and I understand what has happened. I know what has happened versus somebody else, and I have no idea, right? That's the number one thing. And the number two thing is to make sure that we always have adequate records. So with those two things, I am going to leave you this evening. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It has been another amazing night. Thank you so much for indulging me while I share this information. I hope that you were able to get something from it, both stylists and clients. When you are the client, you are often, we often hear that the client is always correct. That is not always true. But what I would say is, from a customer standpoint, the service provider should do whatever they can to make the client happy within That's where, the adage comes in that the client is always correct. We want to make sure that you're happy within reason. So anything that we can do to perform a great service and to ensure that you're happy when you walk out of the door, those are the things that we can do within reason. Right. And so number two, we also want to make sure that you always have adequate records. And so now I know there are some people who are on the line who have licenses in DC. I do see Ebony said, hey, I need to renew my license before the 15th. Ebony, girl, you got 2 days left. You got tomorrow and Friday itself, right? If you need to renew your license in Washington, D.C., please go to the D.C. Board of Barber and Cosmetology website. The website is www.dcra.dc.gov. You're going to do a /, type barbers with an S hyphen cosmetology. That's www.dcra.dc.gov /barbers with an S hyphen cosmetology. That will take you to the cosmetology website. You'll be able to renew your license that way. If you need continuing education, please make sure you get those credits. This year, we only have to do 3 credits opposed to 6. And you can do those in a lot of different ways. There's a listing of the DC approved continuing education providers. So that's the information on that. Again, I want to thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. I don't know when I'll be back, but I will definitely let you know earlier in the day. And then I'm going to choose a permanent night to come on and talk and share these stories. It probably will be once or twice a week, but it will be the permanent nights for the show, and I will advertise them later on. So I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know. Put comments in the replay box. If you have any questions, please put that in the comments as well. If you have any stories that you would like to share or any topics you would like for me to cover, please let me know that as well also. All right. So on that note, I want to wish you all a very good night and say thank you again for joining us, and have an amazing, amazing evening.